ToyTractorTimes.com is at the 2017 Summer Farm Toy Show in Dyersville, Iowa. We're here with Chris Burmeister, who is a longtime model farm veteran. He's been setting up at the national and summer shows and a lot of other shows for probably at least 20 years, right, or more? 30. Well, we appreciate it. I've enjoyed seeing everything you've built over the years, and we got to see a little bit of this 1/32 scale farm at the National last November, but you've made several additions and just getting better all the time. So what can you tell us about this barn here, Chris?
Well, the barn roof, I took the roof off of it to what it originally looked like, and I rechanged it to make it a gambrel style barn where now you'll be able to see into the hayloft, see the bales and the detail inside the barn. And made it so it's a plank barn, so the tractors went up the hillside and drove in and out of the barn. Sometimes they stored antique tractors in them along with the bales and some machinery.
We got an 806 here and a IH 2400 round baler.
Round baler from the early 80s.
And you could drive right in there, and you got the holes in the floor to drop the hay down there.
And the other holes in the floor were the old floorboards rotted out over the years and never got replaced, and some of the barn boards that from weathering they just kind of fell off or
yeah, we can see a hole there.
Detached.
I like the basketball hoop. That's pretty
That
neat.
was out of from a dollhouse scenery. And the barn boards were cut out with a Dremel using a flex shaft. So it's got the scribe siding and it's got the cutouts of the barn boards that had fallen out.
And then do you use a sticker then to show the rock and the brickwork here on the foundation?
That's basically paper. That's a decal sheet just ran off the paper, so it looks like it's through a copier. So it's got the rock foundation on the original half of the barn and the cement blocks on the lean-to half of it to show the age of it from original to old. And then they put steel roof on it at one time, and over the years it weathered and became rusted.
It looks good, and I've noticed over the years a lot of your displays always have 8640 on them, or John Deere Soundguard 4-wheel drive.
That a neighbor of ours had the real ones. We had 8640s around us, or we had a 8650 another neighbor had. And you either seen the John Deere fill cultivators or the Internationals pulling behind, and this one I picked up here at the show, and I'm going to custom make a tank and do some work to the framework, add the harrow and fix it up in the hydraulics to make it look a little more real and get the hitch to match the one that went to the Plow City tractor.
Oh, it's just great to see 1/32 scale John Deere 4-wheel drives, and it looks like you've added on to the hog operation here since we last saw it.
I added the fence just a couple weeks ago, and then making this so it's like a 1940s style hog house, and trying to make it so the roof and everything like the original. And this is from a 1948 Farm Journal magazine.
That's neat. I tell you, these paper decals, I'm just looking at the roof detail. It's just
I used
a lot easier than cutting out 1,000 little shingle pieces.
And then I used the magic marker and marked them so that on the house and the shingle tabs are either torn off or missing. Then I'll have the windows I'll put in here and the doors and the floor put in it eventually.
Well, and then you got the different stages of the hogs from the piglets all the way up to the ready to head to eat breakfast.
And eventually I'm going to end up having the hog feeders, so they look like the PAX hog feeders, and the orange colored ones that were from the Smidley feeders are going to be going into them next.
That's great. Then you got the Kent feed truck.
Feed truck I picked up at it was by First Gear, and it's a 1953 feed truck that was made for a feed company here in Iowa. And I picked that up, and I'm going to weatherize it, and I'm going to make it look like it's being used. A lot of those vintage feed trucks, farms still use them for their own independence, going out to their curtain barns that are still used
Sure.
on the farms nowadays, and they use those old trucks for going from one farm to another.
One of the farms I filmed for Big Tractor Power uses one of those to put their soybeans in their planter.
Yep.
That's a good, lots of good ways to repurpose them. And before we get over to the grain side of it here, I just noticed while we were filming you had looks like a TR combine tucked away back here.
It was a Britain's toy it was dated 1987, and I picked it up here in a side room at the Plaza Mall, and I'm going to do some work to it and get it so it's like the corn head's a little more detailed instead of that wheel in the center for the auger.
Sure.
Then I'm going to have it so it's more of a 70s version of TR70 instead of an 85. And it looked like on this one it had a wiring in it for light, like a little light or something had to have been in it, because the tank comes out of here on this one, and it had a little spot in there where the wire or something, and it had plastic lining. It had clear spacing going into the light, so it had to have some type of wiring or something
Sure
to hold
does.
it in there.
Yep, you can see the
And
one right through the cab.
these had the people in them, in their tractors and in these combines at that decade. Then
I know I used to have the Britain's catalog when I was a kid, and I'd look
then
through it
this
and really
one
look at
has-
that combine.
This one has the ladder on the side, where the one at the grain platform had the air intake, the cleaner on the side. So it had to have been, and it had the grain was plastic mounted in here. So it had to have been two different versions. I don't know if this was a European and one was a US. And all it was the tank was different. And then they used the filter in the back of the engine, and that's what did the steering. And so the combine still steered.
Well, that'll be really neat to see customized, because I used to look at that as a kid and really want one, and that's the first time I've seen one in person.
And the auger was also a different end flighting on the auger.
Good choice for a combine.
They also made the Massey's, and I'm going to be looking around for one of them now. If I want to, I can just take the corn head off of one of them and put it on a Massey and repaint it. And I wanted something from, that was 32nd scale from older days, since they never made any John Deeres, and I wish they would make a John Deere combine from a 6600 from the 70s.
That 6600 is one of those that definitely needs to be made.
There's never been one in 64, 60, 32nd, and the
No.
6600 and the 7700s and the 4400s. Nobody makes them. Nobody's ever made them.
No, they need
Nice
to.
to see one, a vintage, a Prestige or something by Erdl or something to come out, because it was a combine that for some reason was never thought
Oh,
of.
but that's one of the best-selling combines of all time. Well, speaking of combines and grain, you got the Stormore grain bin here, and
The auger was cut apart. It was a plastic toy one that I cut the hopper off of it and I made it into a swing away auger, just by adding a couple pieces of brass and doing some soldering.
so we got it hooked up to an 806 and filling up a J&M 680 gravity wagon on a
And
4440.
my plan is I'm going to cut about a ½ inch off that grain cart, and I'm going to graph of that wagon, and I'm going to lower it a little bit, and I'm going to repaint it into a Parker color from the 80s.
Nice.
And they're going to
So is this sand in here? That looks
yellow
pretty.
sand.
Yeah, it's very effective. It looks
Once in a
the
while, I
way
get
it's-
people wanting to stick their fingers in there and see what it is, so I'm thinking about putting styrofoam in there, and next
Sure.
time I'm going to glue it and it's going to stay.
I like it. Well, here's the really the showpiece for this display and the big change from the fall. You kind of just had this as a grass area with some of the grain
Bins
bins.
are back
Yep. So we got a house now, and that
The
looks
side
good.
light stays on, kind of like chore time, and the front light turns on and off. So I can shut the front light by the front door completely off. Because in the nighttime, the farmer goes out of the porch area and he goes out to his barns to do the chores at night. And then when the guests come over, then the front light comes on and off.
That's great. And that, again, these shingles just it just looks like the real thing. Got the flower pots up front. And landscaping.
The windows are using J.C. Penney catalogs pasted in the windows facing out that look like the furniture. The
That's
front
a great
doors
idea.
and the side screen doors cutouts from Menards, ads for doors for sale of real ones. The
That is
valley
really
tin
creative.
is put in there with brass and bent, and it's spray painted galvanized silver and rust colored, so it's weathered, and the shingle tabs are missing.
And then you were showing me you were working on the gutters. I think there's a few of them down there.
The gutters will eventually go onto the house. They all fit sideways into the house, and they'll be glued and painted and all set in there.
That is really nice.
And then the front gutters will go onto the house. So I'll have all the wraparound gutters will be going onto the house and the porch. They'll have the old original roof antennas and the chimneys I'm going to add to it next. The landscaping is using fall colored trees for the reds and the greens, and then the rock and then just soil, and it's all glued in there.
And I guess we know where the bathroom is because you can see the toilet right through the window. That's pretty cool.
Right here on the back side you can see where looking into the back of the house where the back of the kitchen is. And then over here you can see where the dog is sticking his head out through the curtains in the window.
Chris, that is really creative to do that.
It's to look like the ivies going up alongside the house. And I'm going to add the little bit of a clothesline in the backyard, and once I can find some 32nd scale chickens, I'm going to make a chicken coop, and I'll go on to this.
And what do you do to create like the birch trees down here and these just the larger trees?
Those were used, they call it a polyfiber through Micromark catalog. It's like a pillow fill, and you wrap it around the trees or the village set trees, or they're the twigs from outdoors, and it's just wrapped around, trimmed a little bit with a scissors, and then use Elmer's spray glue, spray them, and then it's the scenery grass from the model trains, and that's all sprinkled on there, and then that way it has the more realistic color to them.
Well, Chris, thank you for the tour of this farm. It's just great to see how it's developing, and I can't wait to see it next time and see these advancements.
Do a display base on it, and I'll be able to spread it out a little more for coming into the fall show.
Well, thanks for bringing it out here to the summer show, and we'll look forward to seeing what comes up next.